So, I always plan and have your talk and everything ready to go. And then the weather happens and things happen, life happens. And so this morning as I sat with this for the time for it to kind of its final congealing to come together, I just kept finding myself, my awareness going to Florida, going to Texas, going out to the different islands. How many of you have definitely a part of yourself there and invested there right now? And so if we thinking about that, how are you feeling right now? Anybody? Uneasy. Worried. Safe. Compassionate. Appreciative. Helpless. Calm. Trusting. Therefore, but the grace of God, there go I. Yeah. So feeling distracted, unsettled, that space between grateful and safe and having our awareness there. And so we hold all of that today as we enter into the talk that I have prepared, what we have had lined up for a while. And that is, in this month, I really felt guided to go back to a classic work that is titled The Four Agreements. How many of you are familiar with this? Yeah, it'd probably be easier to say, is there anybody in here not familiar with it? Because most people are to some degree or another. So what I'm going to ask you to do is pretend that you've never heard of it. And for the next 3 weeks, it's kind of like the Buddhist friends. I love the Buddhist symbol of a wheel, because what that really symbolizes is that we're always have you noticed in your life some of the same things kind of come up again? Even after you remarried and moved and you thought you got over that, the same thing still comes up again. Well, those things come up in our life to be evolved. And sometimes when you've evolved a bit, something comes up to be healed and revealed at a higher level. So it is with these teachings. So I'm just going to ask you to let go, to have the beginner's mind, because there's something in it for us now, something that we have not yet uncovered or discovered. And so a little bit just about the Four Agreements. It's anchored in wisdom that comes from the Toltec tradition. This tradition stems out of Mexico. It grew into, or was sort of replaced by, the Aztec. Most people are more familiar with the Aztecs. But the Toltec tradition is said to have been around in Mexico about the time that Christ was, in the Middle East. And so it's a very old way of being. And the Toltecs were known as warriors, but not as warriors as we may think of a warrior, because they were warriors of self-mastery. What they focused on, there was not a written language, but what has been passed down through oral tradition and through the pictures and what we have and what we know about it. What their focus was primarily on, it was self-mastery in the area of 3 areas. And the 3 words that we would have for those things today are awareness, intent, and transformation. Awareness, our intent, our intentions, and transformation. I don't know of anything more spiritual to talk about than awareness, intention, and transformation, because really that's what life is made up about. And so Don Miguel Ruiz, who stems from, his family is from the Toltec tradition. He is a 65-year-old man today. He wrote the book, The Four Agreements. He grew up in a home of, I believe there were 13 children. Anyway, it was 13 or 16. It was a lot of kids. Same parents. So he was the baby. He was the youngest one. And so when he grew up, he wanted to do something different. And so he went to medical school. He became a surgeon and practiced traditional medicine. He did that successfully for a number of years until he had a near fatal car accident. And in that car accident, he had a whole re-examine your life moment. He had this real epiphany and awakening that he needed to be on a different path. And so he went back and he spent time with his mother. And he sought to learn the ways of the ancestors. And through that, it set him on a spiritual path, and that is what led him to write this book, The Four Agreements. Now, at a surface level, the four agreements, which are, the first one is, be impeccable with your word. The second one is, don't take anything personally. The third one is, don't make assumptions. And the last one is, always do your best. So that's good advice. And I think most of us would agree on those things. But what I want us to really understand is there's something that a level of practice can awaken for you that you may not know is there. For example, a person may demonstrate and may say, well, if you need to build muscles, if you're weak and you need to build muscles, then you need to do repetitions. You need to develop that strength. So first of all, there's the awareness. Oh, okay, if I do this, this can happen. We learn some things by awareness. But let's just suppose you have a person who's never even had that conversation, and they're very weak, but then all of a sudden they find themselves in a situation where every day they're having to use the same muscle, kind of wax on, wax off. You just find yourself in that situation. And one day they discover, wow, I'm stronger now. Because of what I've been doing, I'm stronger now. So these four agreements are sort of like that. We get them at a level of awareness and we say, okay, yeah, I got that. But then when you really commit to practice them, when you really start practicing them, they open you up to new levels of understanding that you did not even know were there. And I truly believe that this is more timely and there's things to come through this for us. So today we launch into this series with the first one that is, be impeccable with your word. Be impeccable with your word. You know, when it comes to our words and how we communicate, I don't know if there's any area in our life where we're as likely to get in trouble. Amen? That it is with our words. Because all of us have an example or two of saying something and immediately wishing you could take those words back. We also have an example or two of having something said to us. And even though the person said, I didn't mean that, I'm sorry, the damage was done. You've all been the recipient and felt those words. And it makes me think about how in a court, when you have a jury, often someone may be on trial and they may say something and the judge says, strike that from the record. Well, it may not be in the official transcript, but it certainly is in our minds. Because once it is said, we've heard it, we've felt the impact of it, that words move us. They go out and they move us. And so when we start including our communication into our spiritual practice, two things happen. Number one, we have a lot of practice material because we're talking a lot. And not just the things that we say out loud. I'm also talking about the stream of thought, that inner chatter, the inner dialogue that pretty much never stops. That we are always involved in words and symbols and interpretation. So when we start taking this into our spiritual practice, number one, we have a lot of material. And number two, it becomes a practice almost for every single waking hour. So you're beginning to see that engaging this is a level of awareness. Hence, the Toltec religion, or the Toltec teachings, it's not a religion, but it's a way of life. It's about awareness first. Awareness and intention and how these things lead to transformation, and how transformation is never a one-stop thing. That transformation is always, we're evolving. I say as long as we have skin on, we have more to bring forth. We have more essence to express. So there's a lot to practice with when we start including be impeccable with your word. Would you say that with me? Be impeccable with your word. The word impeccable comes from the Latin word pectus, which basically means without sin. And remember, the word sin is sort of an archer term that means to miss the mark. And so what it means is to have your words, it's very much like the Buddhists would say, right speech. And you see, right speech is not in a sense of censoring so much or right versus wrong, but it's right as in the direction that we would like to have our words take us. And so be impeccable with your words means to be very mindful and have your words take you in a direction that you truly want to go. If you think about it, how often do we spend more time thinking about the clothes we wear versus what we're going to say? You know, on average, more people give more time into consideration to the clothes they wear than to the way we communicate. And this week, as we practice this, is a real opportunity for us to shift that. It's through our words, it's through conversation that we form deep bonds. You can have an intimate conversation with someone. You can really connect. Pam and Charlie Rogers do a class that's very powerful. It's called, it's about moments of truth. And it's based on the premise that when two people just connect heart to heart, something happens. And it really does, because when you really communicate, there's a connection that takes place. So our words have the capacity to create deep bonds. Therefore, our words have the capacity to sever bonds, to just tear relationships apart, to tear people down. They can do either or. Think about the power of the words, I love you. If you were here last week and had the pleasure of hearing Charles Holt, who talked about spending much of his life, many years of his life, wanting his father to say those three words, I love you. But it was not until his father was close to the end of his life and Charles was a grown man that his father finally said, I love you. But the impact that that had, or to say, I'm sorry, or please forgive me, or I forgive you, or thank you. Those are very, very powerful words. Even the words dada. You know, when a little baby for the first time looks and makes that connection and says dada, a grown man just becomes a mush ball because there's evidence of a connection. The baby says mama. The mother just becomes a mush ball because we realize that little baby has now made a connection. There's a recognition there that there's a power when we make those types of connection. The idea of words having power are not new. There's certainly a connection between our state of being and the quality of our speech. And so any real spiritual tradition, if you look deeply enough, you're going to find this. Would you give me the first slide? The Buddha said, according to the Buddhist text, a person is born with an axe in his mouth. He whose speech is unwholesome cuts himself with that axe. And then the next, from the Islamic tradition, the messenger of God took hold of his tongue and said, "Refine this." To bridle the tongue, to restrain the tongue. The next come from first the Old Testament in Proverbs. The power of life and death are in the tongue. Whosoever guards his mouth preserves his life. That's a powerful statement. And then from the New Testament, from Matthew, for by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. For what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart. In Hawaii, when I lived in Hawaii, I learned that in the Hawaiian tradition they say, the tongue is the paddle that guides the canoe. Where are your words taking you? Isn't that powerful? My grandmother used to say, speak when you're angry and you'll make the best speech you'll ever regret. These sorts of things, we all have these little sayings. Don Miguel in the Four Agreements says, your word has to do with the things you say. Your words make up sentences, phrases that you speak and write. They come out as opinions or comments, thoughts in your heads. They could even become policy or creed or law. Ultimately, your word has to do with the power you have to create through every kind of expression you make. Very simply, to be impeccable with your word is to use your words in the direction of love and truth. Today, we're bombarded with technology and communication, email messages, Facebook posts, tweets, twerks, whatever you want to call them. We're sending out words all the time, communicating or trying to communicate. And it sometimes just becomes a nonchalant habit. We just say things. This week, we're calling ourselves into a practice to be impeccable with our words. One of Joseph Goldstein, he's the co-founder of the Insight Meditation Society. He began to work with the Buddhist practice about having right speech. And again, that's about having your speech go in the direction of truth and of love. And so he made the decision that for 1 week, he would not talk about anyone that was not in his presence. He said, I talked very little that week. Approximately 90% of what I typically say, I did not say. Wow. So much happens with our words. Johnny Carson in 1973 made a joke during the opening statement of his show about a toilet paper shortage. His words resulted in a national toilet paper shortage. His words became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Have you noticed that? I mean, I think about sometimes when on television we talk about how we're going into a recession. Now just stop a moment. Have you ever thought about when we go into a recession, whether it's a bear market or a bull market, whether things are going really, really great or whether they're not? The money is still there. The exact same money is still out there. The only difference is how much is in circulation. Where is it? And so we talk about things and not realizing that quite often these words become a self-fulfilling prophecy. That our words truly are that which sets us free or that which enslaves us. Many years ago, people would say, I give you my word. And if they gave you their word, that was an agreement. You could count on it. And I'm sure some of you probably say that. I give you my word. And if I give you my word, you can count on that. And so let's look at just a few things. Again, in the Buddhist tradition, they make it very practical in some ways because one of the things, if you sort of reduce it down, the Buddhists look at it and say, if you're going to talk about something, ask yourself, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it true? Is what I'm going to say true? Now, a lot of times we express our opinion and call that the gospel truth. That, yes, it may be your opinion, but is it true for everybody? And so, is it true? We start with, is it true? And then we ask ourselves, is it kind? Kind is far more than being nice. I've said this before. I grew up in the South, and part of my vocabulary was, bless her heart. But what we typically meant, Lord God, she's so stupid, or help their pitiful self. That's a terrible kind of thing to carry inside. And I'm sure not everybody means that when they say, bless your heart. But you can sort of look at the eyes and know that behind some of them, there's that, oh, Lord, have mercy. You have no clue what you're doing. Bless your heart. So we're not talking about being nice. Nice is a good quality, but being kind. Kind flows from compassion. Is it true? Is it kind? And is it necessary? How often do we give unsolicited advice? How often do we just talk because we're nervous? Just make up stuff because we're filling the airwaves, so to speak. So not a judgment around it, simply to bring awareness to it. Because when we allow ourselves to become mindful of what we're saying, that awareness, as the Toltec said, will take us to intention. What is the intention? To begin to stay connected. See, so often when we talk, especially in the Western culture, we just talk from here. Have you noticed pretty much this part of our body? But to really get in your whole body, what am I feeling? What is driving this? What's the need? What's the desire? What is behind what I am expressing? What am I really wanting here? To hold myself accountable, what is my intention? Is my intention some snide, snippy remark because you hurt me and I want to get even? It would be really nice if I knew that before the words fell out of my mouth. Because if I could learn that, I can say, wow, there's a part of me that feels hurt right now. And without making myself wrong, I've gained insight. I've gained awareness. I've not broadcast my problem, and I've not broadcast my pain and made you the matter with me. You see, so often our words make other people the matter with us, make situations and circumstances the matter with us. So awareness calls us to become more mindful. What is the intention? What is my intention here? And then I'm going to ask myself, do I really want to connect? Is my intention genuinely to connect? Is it to understand? Seek to understand before you seek to be understood. When we go within and connect with our intention, it allows us to create more space. And instead of making the assumptions, the chatter in our head, we're now beginning to connect heart to heart. I've told this story a few times, and I'll get over it one day. But when I had been in ministry just a few months, in my first ministry in Lawrence, Kansas, the church was growing, it was doing well, and I love to greet people as they're leaving because I usually don't have time before. And so people come and they say, I enjoyed the service, you just spoke to me. And I heard that a lot, and I felt very blessed. And then one day a woman came through, and she said, that was the poorest excuse for a sermon I've ever heard. Oh. My first thought was, I knew it. I know all those other people have just been nice. They've been lying. I totally stink at this. And she's still, all this is happening in a millisecond. She's still standing there. I'm smiling. And I have the wherewithal just to breathe and say, wow, what's going on inside? And so I knew enough and could stay present when she said, that's the poorest excuse for a sermon I've ever heard. I just said, wow, tell me a little bit more. And she said, well, I didn't want to come here today. My kids took my driver's license away this week. They brought me here and dropped me off this morning and told me I enjoy it. I didn't. Now that's a whole different conversation than that was. And so then I said something like, I can understand why that would be very upsetting. And it just opened the door. And eventually she started crying. Thank God I didn't start crying 2 minutes earlier and kick her in the shin and run out the door. But that's the power of communication. It's to make space for one another, to find our way. Richard, would you give me a song? We communicate because we want to connect. We communicate because we want to express. And what is it that we're expressing? 1 John says, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. And the Word became flesh. The Word is God. Could it be that our words are returning us to spirit? You see, our words help us connect with our emotions. An emotion that is fully expressed will always return you to what I call zero. You're empty. And when there's nothing else there, love is there. And in different ways, we're always finding our words. 2 stories to illustrate this in closing. There was a little girl who was 6 or 7, and she was pushing the little stroller, had a little baby in the stroller that was just a little one. And a woman stopped and said, oh my gosh, what a cute little boy. Is he talking yet? And the little girl said, no ma'am. He has 2 teeth already, but his words haven't come in yet. His words haven't come in yet. 16-year-old girl caught shoplifting in a store. Her mother is now going to the police station to pick her up. The mother is appalled because this is a very affluent family. This young 16-year-old girl has a BMW. She has more credit cards and cash than probably a lot of us in this room. There's no reason that she needed to steal. And so it was very obvious that there was something else going on. And so they were very easy with her as a first offender, and they assigned her, this is in California, and you may have heard of Glide Church. It's a Glide Memorial Church, a big church in California. They have a big kitchen, and they work with the homeless, those that are in need, anyone that's in need. And so that became the community work that she had to do for the whole summer. And so as a 16-year-old girl shows up at the place where she's having to help cook food, she's serving food, she is just totally not into this. But the first day, an older woman comes through with a little girl who's 4 years old. And when they come up to get their food, she serves, and the little girl, who's ragged clothes and dirty, but bright eyes and beautiful, looks up right at that 16-year-old and says, "Thank you for this food." Day after day, the same, probably grandmother, the same little girl, quite often in the same clothes. This young 16-year-old, day after day, is encountering this pure, innocent 3-year-old child who is connected to the spirit of gratitude and looks in her eyes and says, "Thank you for this food." 3 weeks after doing this, she said it was on about the 21st day. Have you noticed habits? They say it takes 21 days. 3 weeks after almost the exact same encounter, lots of other folks obviously went through, but she was the one that would serve this little girl. One particular day when the little girl looked in her eyes and said, "Thank you for the food," the 16-year-old dropped everything, turned around, and ran out. One of the workers went and got her, and she was sobbing uncontrollably. And she was saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." She broke. She found her words. You see, she had been put in an experience where she could grow into her words. And the next thing she says was, "I guess we're all in this together." Today, that woman is a Vipassana meditation teacher. We're all in this together. And it is through the power of our words that a little thank you expresses the spirit of gratitude. That our words express, our words heal, and our words transform. Our words, through practicing our words, will allow us to become more conscious, clear channels for this power and presence we call love. This week, we have a basket with 2 things. Number 1 is a rubber band. It's not for shooting each other. Say, "I will not shoot anyone with this rubber band," or myself. It's not for hurting yourself. It's for a reminder. We have all different sizes. We even have latex free. You have no excuse not to have a rubber band. Thank you. And then we have a sheet of 7 affirmations. So you have homework this week if you choose to accept this mission. The rubber band, I hope you wear it 21 days. Because it takes 21 days at least, 21 to 30 days to cultivate a new habit. 21 days uninterrupted. I'll tell you another time about how NASA proved that. But what this is for is a reminder. So when you catch yourself going, yada, 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 why? The White House. Okay. Oh, let me start over. We just switch it to the other arm. And I take a breath. I'm not putting my head in the sand, but okay, what is my intention here? What am I trying to express? I really want us to all be able to show up respecting one another. Now see, I can say that and there's power behind it. And I'm not making anybody else the matter with me. This is to take us deeper. These affirmations, you can do them any way you choose. The way I like to do them is I cut them off and I have 7 little affirmations. I roll them up, I put them in a jar, and I pull one out a day, carry it with me all day long. And the affirmation may be something like, I am abundantly grateful and I am gratefully abundant. Or free from any story, I rise up to my true glory. Free from any story, you rise up to your true glory. Practice with these. Take one a day with your rubber band. Are you willing to join me in harnessing the power of the Word that we may be used for instruments of spirit? My words are prayers, and I am always praying. My words are prayers. Listen to what I'm saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always here. And every word becomes a prayer. I invite you to close your eyes. Beginning, sound, vibration, word. And the Word was with the Creative. The Word was the creative God. Vibration, energy. And this word, this vibration, comes into form. Symbols, ideas. This vibration begins to outpicture as a form. This word becomes flesh. It's a tone. We can speak it. We express with our words. We connect with our words. But the Word, the Spirit of life, the fullness of all that is, becomes anchored in reality as we can give it form. You see, our words come to us when we're ready. Higher and higher understandings come to us through our awareness and our intention and our practice. Awareness, intention, practice. Constantly transforming, constantly bringing forth higher vibrations of light, of love. Our earth at this very moment is seeking to bring itself back into balance. I believe it is seeking to bring us into balance. May our words reflect the truth. May our words bring forth life and healing. May our words be willing to have those honest conversations that are not easy to have, but the conversations that can set us free, conversations that can transform, the conversations that can get things off our chest. May our words be pure, true, and kind. May they be intentional. My words are prayers, and I am always praying. My words are prayers. I am mindful what I'm saying. I seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness. I know that God is always here, and every word becomes a prayer. Join together now. We speak the word. We speak the word. The word that says we are one. We are one in spirit and in truth. We speak that word, and we hold in our hearts all that is going on in our world right now. All these words that were spoken, how we're feeling. This mixture of everything from gratitude to fear, appreciation to uncertainty. We stand in the midst of this, but we know as a master teacher, Jesus said that even though we're in the world, we're not of the world. And so we choose to be fully present, to roll up our sleeves, to help our brothers and sisters. And equally as important, to be carriers of the truth. It's time that we grow into higher vibration words. Words that can heal, words that can unify. Words that speak and honor the sacredness of all life, including Mother Earth. Words that know no boundary, know no color, know no orientation. Words that know the one human spirit expressed in many faces and many forms. May our words be elevated. May I, the great I am, the great Atman, the spirit that animates all humanity, may the spirit, the great I am, be lifted up. We speak that word. May we be lifted higher. May we be a healing balm in our world. My words are prayers, and I am always praying. My words are prayers. I am mindful what I'm saying. I seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness. I know that God is always here, and every word becomes a prayer. So I'm going to ask you to open your eyes, to stand. And if it's comfortable, to join the hand of someone by you. And we hold in our hearts, all people, lift your voice. My words are prayers. My words are prayers, and I am turn to one person. This is a test. Give them one word that is a prayer. And so it is.